Weekends are made for planting. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and today I'm going to show you the beautiful work that Rod and Logan did here in our gardens at the Northern Michigan Garden. They had a busy Memorial Day weekend getting all these plants planted, and I think it's fun to just take a look and see what we did up here in these gardens. And then we'll be showing you progress throughout the summer as well as to how they did. We do have deer in the area, so we did do some things that we are going to be testing the deer on. So we'll keep those in mind too as we continue to look through the gardens throughout the summer. So let's go ahead and take a look at what they did for planting. So the garden bed we're looking at right now is a garden bed that is seen from at the upper level there of the cottage, looking downward onto it. But also this space is something that people look at and what we look at from the lake. So this has to have a lot of color and a lot of impact from not only the top down, but also from bottom up. In this garden space this year, we planted a bunch of sun patiens. So the cottage being blue, I wanted to kind of create kind of a patriotic theme. So this year we planted the red and white sun patiens, going every other in this bed to create kind of that striping look. Behind the sun patiens, we planted some of the Aromance mulberry nemesia, which I love this nemesia. It blooms all summer long, which is quite unusual for nemesia. Typically this is a spring or a cold, not spring necessarily, but a cold weather annual. So it shines in the spring and it shines in the fall, but typically in the summer, nemesia kind of shut down and don't really give a lot of impact with its flowers. But this new Aromance series has done fabulous in our gardens for the past 2 or 3 years, and it's very fragrant, so that's why we continue to use it in this garden space. Also, we tucked a couple of the tropical rose sun patiens in. Those are the variegated ones with the pink blooms, just for some added splashes of color in this bed. Last year we put some petunias in here, kind of sprinkled throughout, but because we didn't get to fertilizing them enough, they didn't do very great. So this year we're just using those sun patiens sprinkled throughout the back to add pops of color while we're waiting for the shrubs and the perennials to shine. Also in this garden, the perennials that we've used are a big sweeping of coneflower. I made kind of a drift starting from one side heading to the other, so that way midsummer we'll have some beautiful coneflowers blooming. There's some Monarda in here along with some phlox, which obviously none of those are blooming yet. The shrubs we used in this area, we have some of the pugster butterfly bushes. And as you can see here in Michigan, these died back to the ground. I think this is a zone 5B or 6A garden, kind of on that border. So the pugster butterfly bushes. We've also got some of the invincible, the pink hydrangeas in here. And then along the back wall are some bobos, which eventually will get as tall as that wall to kind of hide that brick. And then over here tucked in the corner, some more of the invincible hydrangeas. And in the very corner there is a spirea double play doozy, all of which the deer so far have left alone. Also tucked along the back wall, we put some Suncredible sunflowers, which will be pretty yellow to match those beautiful yellow chairs. So excited to watch as this little garden space fills out throughout the summer. The next space that was planted was here under the flagpole. And you can see it's a pretty calm day today. But we wanted again to kind of carry out that red, white, and blue theme. So the plants we planted under the flagpole are again some red and white sun patiens, along with some blue argyratum, that's the artist blue, and then some of the rockin' playing the blue salvia, which will give us some height in this area. He also sprinkled a few of the very fun and new pink cashmere verbena, so we'll see how those do, if the deer and rabbit eat those or not. So that's something I'll certainly keep you posted on, but just a few sprinkles of that throughout, just to have a consistent pop of color while all of these perennials in this bed kind of cycle and do their blooms at their time to shine. Lining the walkway, or it's not really a road, but it's a drive. We did the gold dust nemesia, which is a very low growing ground cover. And you've seen us use this at the greenhouse before. We love to use this gold dust because it's just so low growing. And when the sun's out, it's just such a beautiful little splash of yellow that lines the pathway. So this will just kind of give you a look at what things are doing right now. Not too much. You can see I have hosta in here and they are pretty clean, meaning the deer have not been to this area yet. We're going to head up to the front garden and see what we've got planted up there. Along the front of the cottage, Rod put some more sun pations in. This is the sun patient hot pink, and that will give this garden just splashes of pink throughout the summer. Also, the dianthus Paint the Town is looking beautiful. I just love that plant. It's such a great low growing splash of color. Ground cover, little mounding habit, planted around a rock, and it'll just kind of encircle it. One thing you'll notice in this space too is we have a lot of chartreuse or yellow foliage plants. We've got the bleeding heart here, golden feathers. This is already bloomed, but look at the great foliage that it's leaving behind. Some heucherella. Little splashes of yellow to kind of break the garden up. And then tucked up against the back there, that's a dicentral bleeding heart. That's gold heart. And we've got a few of those tucked along as well, just to give this little space some foliage color. This year for our lighted hanging basket, we chose the Selenia apricot begonias. And I've told you before, orange is not my jam, but it's becoming. And Rod also, this isn't typically a color he's going to choose, but when he saw this, he thought, you know what, we got to do it. And I'm glad he did, because I just love that color, especially up against the blue of the house. Nestled in here behind our chairs where we sit, you can see lots of pops of color. Some more of the heuchera, and you're seeing the chartreuse greens in there of the bleeding heart. There's an azalea tucked there in the back corner, and then we have bobo hydrangea that as they grow should get to be just underneath the window there with the beautiful white blooms of the summer. There's some veronica or some salvia blooming right now, just a little bit starting in this space. Over to the side of the cottage, we've got the Hacklenacloa all gold grass, which is so vibrant and so pretty. Such an easy grass to grow, just kind of little mounding habits, very compact, but that bright yellow really pops, especially if you have kind of more of a dark or shady area in your garden. Making our way to the side, we've got some Bernera that have already bloomed, some Pulmonaria that's bloomed. This was really pretty in flower about a month ago. So now it's just a lot of foliage interest in this pretty much, I'm going to call it part shade, although it's mostly going to be a shady area. We have some of the Paraplu hibiscus or Rosa Sharon that we planted, and they're only about 18 inches tall right now, but as they continue to grow, they should create kind of like a nice little border or wall in this area to kind of enclose it in a little bit. Planter was just planted. It got really windy 2 nights ago, and it knocked some of those leaves off there on the colocasia, so I'm not too worried about it. We'll probably just go and snip those off. But if you look down here, there's a lot of new growth coming, so as this new growth kind of starts to emerge, we're going to trim off these old leaves because they are a little bit weathered and tattered. Taking a look over the edge to kind of give you the full perspective of top down, there's probably a good 30 foot, maybe more, drop from where I'm standing down to the water's edge. This area here is mostly shade, probably gets about 4 or so hours of sun a day. So we had to keep that in mind with the perennials that we chose. More of that Hacklenacloa grass, some more heuchera or corabels. The next level there's not a lot blooming yet, but when there is, it'll be a stilbe and pulmonarias in there that's already bloomed. There's more bleeding hearts which have bloomed. A lot of this is just foliage color at this point in that next level. The astilbe will give us some nice midsummer color, but everything else pretty much is just going to be that foliage color that we're going to get to enjoy. This year we tried something different here at the road, and we did lantana. In the past we've done sun pations and they've done okay, although we have noticed that there's been some deer nibbling on them throughout the summer. So the lantana should not be touched by the deer. We'll see, because they always surprise you with what they do and don't eat. But I'm excited to see how these do. This is a fairly part shade area, so they're not going to get the optimal sun that you would normally plant lantana in. They usually like to be in like the most sunniest, hottest areas. So we'll see if they get enough sun throughout the summer to really put on the show that we're hoping to see from them. Also, we planted a little bit of nemesia up here at the front, just to kind of let those two colors play off of each other. And then behind the nemesia, there's some of the purple fountain grass, which as it gets taller will be a nice backdrop for these purples and yellows that we have planted here. Also, there's some hellebore, Lenten rose, and the deer ate some of those. And that's typically a plant the deer do not touch. So that's when we say, you know, they're supposed to be deer resistant, but the deer will eat what they want. It's entirely possible. Beautiful Aurelia Sun King is that bright chartreuse splash. Some of the cordial cherry begonias, a nice black glossy foliage. So this area is going to fill in really nicely this summer and give us lots of color. Also right there's a couple of the cat's pajamas Nepeta, and those two are going to look really pretty, that purple up against the yellow here of the lantana. So this was actually the last place Rod planted because he wasn't sure what he was going to have left with flowers. He had brought in, like as you've seen in the video, 3 carts of flowers up with pretty much a thought of what he was going to do with them. But this area here was kind of the wild card. Wasn't sure exactly what was going to be done. So here he went a little heavy on the tropical rose sun patiens with their variegated foliage and bright pink flowers. Behind it, he's got some of the salvia playing the blues. And those are going to be really pretty. Deer should not touch those, so we'll see how that goes. Sun patiens are iffy. And here's a big wild card, is the begonias. These are the Selenia yellow begonias with the Argyratum artist blue in the front. It looks really pretty right now. A couple days, the deer haven't found them yet. But I have a feeling that this might be the plant that we're going to see getting nibbled by the deer are the begonias. So this is one we're doing kind of knowing it may not be here when we get back. Tucked in the back there, we've got more of the cordial cherry begonias. Now these begonias, the cordial cherry, typically last year anyhow, we didn't see a lot of deer damage on. And I think it was because they were tucked into spots maybe the deer didn't reach. A lot of ornamental grass in this bed because ornamental grass obviously are something the deer don't really touch. Irises, they've already bloomed. And here we're kind of creating that symmetry, taking the color to this far side of the bed. Again, with the begonias and the Argyratum artist blue. There are some shrubs planted in here, some invincible garnetta hydrangeas. And they're not getting very big, and I don't know, it might be because the deer are browsing, but we'll see how they do. It's not like we have obvious signs of deer browsing, but they're not getting very big yet. Here's a hardy hydrangea. I think I'll be able to tell from the other side what it is. But again, these are only about 18 inches taller, so. Oh, look at here. This is exactly what I was afraid of. So somebody has found this plant. So I'm sure when we come back, they're gonna all look like this. Dang it. Oh well, I knew better. I knew this was gonna be an issue, but I didn't think it'd be this quick. Jacob's Ladder, just finishing up its blooming. Some more sun patiens and some more salvia as we make our way around the corner. Another plant too you see in deer areas is coreopsis, because the deer typically don't touch the coreopsis. So in this bed, this was a huge patch of coreopsis that was in here when we bought the place, and so Rod left this in the garden just because we knew it would be something that would bloom, look good, and not have to worry about the deer munching on. There's some more, along with some more ornamental grasses. Looks like he tucked a couple of the sunflowers in here as well, so the Suncredible sunflowers. So we'll see how they do. Verbena, pink cashmere. Nice mounding habit. He put a little fennel in for me too for the black swallowtails, so hopefully we'll start seeing some eggs on the fennel from the black swallowtails. Poppies are usually tried and true. Deer aren't going to touch those because they got kind of a prickly type texture to them. And then Nepeta, cat's pajamas. So a lot of color, and we'll see how much of it stays and how much of it goes due to nature and its nibbling. It's all a process, it's all a test, and sometimes you got to test things just to know how vulnerable they may or may not be. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. If you're new to our station, we welcome you to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.